"This photograph," Dr. Simon Bell announced, "shows an unknown Marine patrol during the retreat from Chosin." His laser pointer floated beneath a wall-sized image of frost-burned young men standing in a white Korean valley. "No confirmed names," he continued, "no surviving roster, another mystery swallowed by war." At the back of the group, an old man in a faded navy pea coat leaned harder on his cane. His voice was thin, but it cut through the gallery. "Unknown? I buried 2 of them with my own hands." The room went still. The curator turned with the careful smile people use when they have already decided not to listen. "Sir, this exhibit has been reviewed by military archivists." The old man did not look at him. He lifted one trembling hand toward the photograph. "That's Vernon Tully from Bangor. He gave away his socks the night the temperature dropped below 30 below. That's Luis Ortega beside the radio. He could fix a handset with wire, chewing gum, and a curse. And that one?" His finger stopped beneath a young Marine whose scarf hid half his face. "That one is me." His name was Elias Rowan. He had taken the early bus into the city with a paper bag lunch folded in his lap and an old Marine Corps pin fastened to his coat. The pin was green with age. The coat had been brushed clean that morning until the fabric nearly shone. He had not come for the tanks. He had not come for the flags. He had not come for the speeches. He had come because a newspaper photograph had found him at his kitchen table 3 days earlier. A new Korean War gallery had opened at the National War Memory Center. The article showed a blurred corner of one display, just enough for Elias to see a snowbank, a broken radio mast, and the shape of a young man leaning on a rifle as if sleep had almost beaten him standing up. Elias had stared at the newspaper for a long time. Then he folded it once, folded it again, and whispered a name he had not said aloud in 20 years. Tully. There were boxes under his bed that had not moved since his wife died. Inside them were campaign ribbons, brittle letters, a cracked compass, and a little tin of Korean soil wrapped in oilcloth. He left all of it there. The museum did not need medals, it needed names. By noon, Elias stood beneath a photograph. It was larger than any memory should be. Every face was there in cruel detail. Split lips, hollow cheeks, eyebrows crusted white with ice, gloves too thin for the cold, rifles held by boys who had stopped looking like boys weeks before. The plaque beside it was short, "Unknown Marine Patrol. Chosin Reservoir area, winter 1950, photographer unidentified. Names lost in the withdrawal, names lost." The words landed in Elias like a door closing on a room full of voices. Dr. Bell's tour group gathered beside him, polished shoes and wool coats, murmuring at the image as if it were beautiful. "It represents the anonymity of sacrifice," the curator said. "These men belong to the collective memory now." Elias turned his head. "No, they don't." The curator blinked. "Excuse me? They belong to their mothers, their brothers, their wives, their towns." He tapped his cane once on the floor. "And for one bad week they belonged to me." A few visitors shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Bell kept his smile, but it tightened at the corners. "You knew men who served there?" "I knew those men." "That is a powerful personal feeling," Bell said. "But the museum cannot replace documentation with feeling." Elias stepped closer to the barrier. "Feeling didn't teach me their middle names." He pointed to the left side of the photograph. "Private Vernon Tully, Bangor, Maine. Could sleep through artillery, but not through a man crying." His finger moved. "Corporal Luis Ortega, El Paso. Kept a rosary tied inside his field jacket and pretended he didn't." Another face, Ben Harlan. He carried a red scarf from his sister and said, if he made it home, he was never going north of Virginia again. A woman in the tour group covered her mouth. Elias kept going, his voice rougher now, stronger because it had work to do. Don McAvoy from Kansas laughed when he was scared. Charles Beeman, who wrote the best lies to his wife so she wouldn't worry. Peter Novak, who lost 2 toes and still refused the stretcher. Dr. Bell raised one hand. Sir, please. But Elias was no longer in the gallery. He was back on the road below the reservoir, where trucks burned black against snow, and the wind came down the valley like it had teeth. He could smell diesel. He could taste blood from a split lip. He could hear the radio sputtering under Ortega's hands, while the wounded waited in a ditch and the road ahead stayed silent. They called us a patrol on that plaque, Elias said. We were 2nd Squad, Baker Company. The photograph was taken after we opened the bend for the medical convoy. Dr. Bell's voice sharpened. That is exactly the kind of claim that creates problems for public history. Elias finally looked at him. Public history? Yes, Bell said, no longer smiling. A museum has a responsibility to accuracy. Memory, especially combat memory, is unreliable. It merges people. It invents order. It protects the survivor. The words hit harder than the curator knew. Elias looked back at the photograph. Yes, he said quietly, it does protect the survivor, but it also protects the dead. For a moment, the only sound was the ventilation humming above the exhibit. Then Dr. Bell made a small signal with 2 fingers. A security guard near the doorway straightened and began walking toward them. A young archivist named Mara Cole had been standing at the edge of the group with a clipboard against her chest. She had seen veterans misremember things before. Everyone in that building had, but this did not feel like confusion. Elias did not search for names. He did not decorate them. He spoke each one as if setting a cup back on its proper shelf. The guard was 3 steps away when a side entrance opened. A tall old man in a dark suit entered with the museum director and 2 board members behind him. He moved slowly, but the room made space before anyone asked it to. Retired General Frank Calder had the blunt face of a man who had spent half his life refusing easy answers. His silver hair was cut short. His left hand rested on a black cane with a Marine emblem set into the handle. He had come for the donor preview. Instead, he heard one name, Ben Harlan. The general stopped. Elias had just pointed to the scarfed Marine near the center of the image. Harlan never took that scarf off, Elias said. His sister knitted it too short. He said that was how he knew it was made with love. General Calder's face changed. Not much. Just enough for Mara to see all the authority drain out of him and be replaced by recognition. He walked past the director. Staff Sergeant Rowan? Elias turned. His cloudy eyes narrowed. Then the old Marine in the pea coat let out something almost like a laugh. Frankie Calder, you were a lieutenant who thought a map could stay dry in a snowstorm. A ripple moved through the room. Dr. Bell went pale. General Calder looked at Elias for a long second, then at the curator. This man is not interrupting your exhibit, Calder said. His voice was quiet. That made it worse. He is correcting it. Bell swallowed. General, we have no complete roster for this image. The archive notes are incomplete because Baker Company's records were in a truck that burned on the road south of Coterie, Calder said. The field reports, casualty slips, even the photographer's envelope were destroyed before they reached regimental headquarters. He turned toward the photograph. But the men were not destroyed. He pointed his cane at the faces. 2nd Squad, Baker Company, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division. Photographed after the roadblock below the frozen bridge was cleared for a medical convoy. Then he pointed to Elias. And this is Staff Sergeant Elias Rowan. The squad leader who held those boys together when the thermometer fell past 30 below and the radio died twice. The curator opened his mouth. No words came out. Calder stepped closer to him. "You wanted documentation, Dr. Bell. Here is documentation. I have read Rowan's name in 3 separate Marine oral histories, 2 private letters from Lieutenant Hanley, and 1 damaged casualty ledger that your own archive still has misfiled under winter supply." Bell's face flushed. Calder's tone hardened. "You saw an old man in a worn coat and decided he was a problem for your schedule. You did not ask what he had carried. You did not ask why he could name them. You did not ask why his hands shook when he saw that wall." The general looked back at Elias, and the anger left his voice. "When paper burns," he said, "sometimes memory is all history has left." The gallery was silent. Elias looked at the young Marine in the photograph, the one with the scarf over his jaw. His own younger face stared back at him from 70 winters away. "I was 22, Elias said. "I thought I was old enough to bring them all home." He touched his chest. "I was wrong." No one moved. Then the security guard, who had stopped halfway across the room, straightened his shoulders. He was too young to know Chosin except from books, but he knew a soldier when he saw one. He lifted his hand in a salute. General Calder followed, slowly, perfectly. The director did too, awkwardly at first, then with both feet planted. Visitors began standing straighter. One by one, hands rose. Some did not know how to salute, so they simply placed a hand over their heart. Elias did not smile. He gave a small nod, as if accepting something on behalf of men who could not stand there to receive it. "They were cold," he whispered. "They were scared, and they did what had to be done." Mara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and lowered her clipboard. "Doctor," Bell stepped forward, his voice breaking under the weight of his own mistake. "Staff Sergeant Rowan, I owe you an apology." Elias looked at him. "You owe them a plaque." By closing time, the photograph had been removed from the public wall and carried into the conservation room. Elias sat beside it under a soft lamp while Mara set a recorder on the table. She asked for the first name. He did not need the photograph for that. "Vernon Albert Tully," he said, "Bangor 21. He had a mother named Rose and a brother who worked boats." Mara wrote quickly. "Luis Mateo Ortega," Elias continued. "El Paso. 23. Could fix anything but his own homesickness." One by one, the unknown patrol became men again. Not symbols, not a lesson men. The next morning, Dr. Bell found the misfiled casualty ledger exactly where General Calder said it would be. Brittle pages, smoke stains, half a corner missing. Enough survived to confirm 7 names. Elias gave them 16. Mara spent the next month cross-checking letters, burial records, enlistment cards, hometown newspapers, and 1 photograph mailed from a sister in Maine. Every time the paper ran out, Elias filled the gap with something paper could not hold. The way Harlan tucked the red scarf under his chin. The way Tully sang off-key when he thought no one could hear. The way Ortega said a prayer over the radio before trying one more time. 6 weeks later, the photograph returned to the main gallery. The old plaque was gone. In its place stood a new brass plate with 16 names engraved in solemn rows. At the top it no longer said unknown. It said, "2nd Squad, Baker Company, Chosin Reservoir Campaign, Winter 1950. Below the names, a final line had been added at Elias's request. "Not all records are made of paper. Some are carried home in the men who remember." Elias came back once after that. He stood alone before the photograph near closing, his hat in both hands. The gallery lights softened around him. For a long time he said nothing. Then he looked at each face, Tully, Ortega, Harlan, McAvoy, Beeman, Novak, all of them. And finally the young Marine with the scarf covering half his face. Elias leaned on his cane, tired but steady. For 70 winters the world had called them unknown. Elias Rowan never did.